Hey guys, welcome to my presentation on attitudes. My name is David DeZonia. Let's get started by talking about just what an attitude is. According to Angela Sabates, attitudes are generally considered to be summary evaluative reactions of a target that include dimensions such as good or bad, harmful or beneficial, or likable and unlikable. Those are some big words, kind of, but overall, attitudes are basically how we feel about a situation or a person as we interact with it based on the things and situations that we've encountered in the past. It's usually an automatic and somewhat subconscious response to that situation. So, as I was monitoring my attitude this week, I was kind of just thinking about how much it changed throughout the day and why it was there. And it was really kind of interesting to be more mindful of that. I'm not usually probably as paying as much attention to it as I should be. Uh, I think my attitude is much more stable as an adult than it was when I was younger. I had wider attitude swings, or stronger stances for and against things, and my attitude varied more than it does now. I'm more consistent as a whole, but did find some things changing my attitude. Setting definitely had an effect on my attitude. I have a different attitude when I'm at home with my wife and kids versus when I'm at work with coworkers. I work at Chick-fil-A, and that can be a high pressure, tense situation sometimes. And I definitely kind of take on a different persona or a different attitude when I'm in those settings. And I'm sure um, church or being at my parents' house, which I didn't do this week, but those would all have different effects on an attitude. I would go into that situation with a different attitude than I would in another one. The things I was doing or the people I encountered also had a big effect on my attitude. For example, at work, we have lots of regular guests, and I just kind of caught myself getting cheered up by certain people that would come in, or even kind of having a more of a negative feeling or vibe, just being a little more cautious around someone when they walked in if I had had a bad experience with them in the past. My kids definitely have a way of brightening me up, but also just having me on that parental guard. So I definitely take on a certain attitude as a dad compared to as a Chick-fil-A employee. So I found that interesting how I, without really even thinking about it, just switch how I'm feeling, how I'm behaving in a certain situation based on what's expected of me there and have the interactions I've had with that environment and those people in the past. So, why does my attitude change? This was sort of an interesting thing to learn this week. But my attitude changed based on kind of the expectancy value model that we learned about in the book. This is basically a kind of a summation of things that I had learned about a certain person or a situation called a target in our book, but then I expect a that situation to go a certain way, and therefore I base my attitude off of that expectation. And how strong the attitude might be is sort of how much value I've placed on those people or that situation in the past. I found it interesting that author Sabates also told us that the likelihood of attitude change declined from early adulthood to middle adulthood and then increased later in life. So, middle adulthood, which I would consider myself in right now, being 35, is the time that you actually have the strongest attitudes towards certain things. So, you're the most confident in your ability to read a situation appropriately and be strong in your attitude and therefore not really vary or change as much. And that sort of explained how I feel now with my attitude being more consistent. So, what is the point of my attitude? It serves a lot of purposes, but a lot of them is just sort of guiding us through what can be a complicated social world that we live in. It tells me how to act in a certain situation based on what I've known before so that I can act reasonably and responsibly in that situation. It's also sort of a shortcut so that we don't have to take as much time to decide how to respond to certain events. And it can also tell other people how they should behave around us or what to expect from us based on our attitude. The Bible or a biblical life lays out some certain attitude expectations. And I brought some verses here, but the underlying guideline for us as Christians is that we should have a Christ-like attitude. God came to earth in the form of Jesus and displayed the attitude that he would like us to have, the recommended way to live here on earth. So if we want to know what type of an attitude we have, I believe that the best way to look is to study the life of Christ and try to behave like that, try to have that attitude towards situations. Thank you for this opportunity to learn more about attitudes, to listen to my reflection on attitudes. I hope everyone had a great week. I look forward to hearing from you.